A major ruling against both P. Diddy and Jay-Z, as a judge rules a rape accuser can remain anonymous, at least for now. And the judge gets spicy in her ruling too, calling out Jay-Z's attorney for filing what she says is a litany of motion.
For years, the world has looked up to Diddy and Jay-Z as the blueprint, the ultimate success story of two men who climbed from the streets to the summit of global power. They weren't just rappers, they were kings.
For the past 3 months now. That's because he faces federal charges of racketeering conspiracy, sex trafficking by force, fraud, or coercion, and transportation to engage in prostitution. But Diddy's fall from grace came far before his September arrest, but rather last November, when the first civil suit against him was filed alleging sexual abuse. Since then, there have been almost too many civil lawsuits to keep up with, and another high-profile name has recently made its way into a filing: Jay-Z. Sean Carter, Beyonce's husband, whatever you know him as, is now accused of raping a 13-year-old girl at one of P. Diddy's parties. We reported on this specific lawsuit back when it was filed in October, but here's a quick refresher. The woman who filed this civil suit is listed only as Jane Doe. She hasn't revealed her true identity and doesn't have to, at least for now, but more on that later. Now, Jane Doe says she met Diddy's limo driver outside the MTV Video Music Awards in September 2000. He told her, quote, Combs liked younger girls and said she'll fit what Diddy was looking for, not allowing her into the awards, but inviting her to an after party. Later that night, the driver brought her to a large white house that was behind a gated fence, and inside, she saw multiple celebrities she recognized, and of course, P. Diddy. According to her suit, once inside, two men asked plaintiff, that's Jane Doe, to sign a non-disclosure agreement, informing her that she could not discuss what happened at the party. She gave them her name and signed the form, but did not receive a copy. Eventually, Jane Doe accepted a drink at this party. She says it was a reddish-yellow mixture and tasted like orange juice, cranberry juice, and something else bitter mixed in. Jane Doe now believes Diddy or one of his associates slipped something into her drink. After all of this, Jane Doe had some of the drink. She says she started feeling woozy and wanted to lie down. So she went into what she thought was an empty room but did not lock the door. The next part is a direct quote from Jane Doe's lawsuit, and it's pretty disturbing, quote, Soon after, Combs, along with a male and female celebrity, entered the room. Combs aggressively rumblings that celebrity B is actually Jennifer Lopez, who was Diddy's girlfriend at the time, but that has not been confirmed. What has been confirmed, though, at least according to Jane Doe, is that celebrity A is Jay-Z. In December, Jane Doe amended her lawsuit to publicly name Jay-Z, alleging he raped her that night. And again, reminder, she's only 13 at the time. Jay-Z completely denies these allegations. He's made a motion earlier this month even for Jane Doe to reveal her identity. And that's not the first time we've seen this tactic, and the last time it actually worked. We reported on this too. The original Jane Doe, who filed civil suit against Diddy in late 2023, the one who included pictures in her lawsuit, was just recently ordered to reveal her name publicly. And that's when we learned that Jane Doe is actually Anna Kane. She's known mostly as the ex-wife of hockey player Evander Kane. So following this same pattern, Jay-Z's team filed a motion demanding Jane Doe make her name public. Here's what his team wrote. Admissions by the plaintiff, meaning Jane Doe, and damning admissions by her own father in a December 13 revelatory NBC interview cast yet further doubt on a claim that was obviously false from the start. The timeline, location, and occurrence of events alleged in plaintiff's complaint are rendered impossible by these admissions. She claims her father picked her up after the assault, and this next part they mean to write, he took a 5-hour trip. She claims she spoke with musician Benji Madden that night. He was not even in New York. She claims the assault took place at an after-party hosted in a private residence. Photos show Mr. Carter at an
Entrepreneurs, visionaries, the faces of ambition, luxury, and legacy, but behind that polished image, behind the music, the brands, the billion-dollar headlines, there's a darker story that's finally coming to light. The untold truth about Diddy and Jay-Z, their disturbing secrets, hidden ties, and the web of power they've carefully built in the shadows, is finally starting to unravel. This isn't just about fame, this isn't just about money, this is about manipulation, silence, and control, a world of secrets that was never meant to be exposed. From the outside, Diddy and Jay-Z looked unstoppable. They played the game perfectly, two giants who turned hustle into empire. But insiders say there's always been something off about their partnership, something deeper than friendship, more complex than rivalry. And now, whispers from behind the scenes are painting a picture far darker than anyone imagined. It starts with power, and how both men learned early that power in the music industry wasn't just about talent. It was about leverage, about knowing who owed who, and who could be silenced. Diddy learned it first.
After party at a nightclub. When pressed by NBC, plaintiff was forced to admit, "I've made some mistakes. I may have made a mistake in identifying. Not all faces there are as clear," and even that she was guessing about key details, including the time it took to reach the venue. What is more, she admits she does not have a single corroborating witness over the last 24 years. In this motion, Jay-Z's team calls for an immediate preservation order, suggesting that Tony Busby, Jane Doe's attorney, could destroy key evidence in the case. The filing even says there's a substantial risk that this may happen. So Jay-Z wants this preservation order, but if not that, he wants the lawsuit completely thrown out and dismissed. But the judge wasn't going for it. This is the spicy part of the motion we mentioned earlier. To start, she broke down the criteria for keeping a plaintiff's name out of a lawsuit, saying there are several key factors in play in Jane Doe's case. One, whether the litigation involves matters that are highly sensitive and of a personal nature. Two, whether identification poses a risk of retaliatory physical or mental harm to the party seeking to proceed anonymously, or even more critically, to innocent non-parties. Another risk, whether the plaintiff is particularly vulnerable to the possible harms of disclosure, particularly in light of her age, and whether the plaintiff's identity has thus far been kept confidential. Now, the motion lays out the pros and cons of keeping Jane Doe's name quiet. The judge notes, most importantly, plaintiff's continued anonymity may cause prejudice to defendants, making it more difficult for them to collect the facts necessary to mount a defense and, as appropriate, challenge plaintiff's credibility. But she says, nevertheless, at this exceedingly early stage in this case, the factors counseling against disclosure outweigh those that counsel in favor. So the judge granted Jane Doe's motion to remain anonymous, at least for now. She does note, though, that the court intends to revisit this decision at a future date. After all this, the judge addresses Jay-Z's prior motion and basically calls out his defense team. She says they have, quote, submitted a litany of letters and motions attempting to impugn the character of plaintiff's lawyer, many of them expounding on the purported urgency of this case. This next part is extra fiery. Quote, Carter's lawyers' relentless filing of combative motions containing inflammatory language and ad hominem attacks is inappropriate, a waste of judicial resources and a tactic unlikely to benefit his clients. The court will not fast-track the judicial process merely because counsel demands it. So we've gone through the motion and the ruling on paper, but what does all of that really mean? So we're joined now by criminal defense attorney Adam Conta to take a closer look at the judge's ruling. Now, Adam, is this a win for Jane Doe, do you think, to remain anonymous?
Yeah, it's a win for Jane Doe, certainly, but it's like a short win. It's really much more of a loss for the legal team of Jay-Z and Diddy.
Why would you say that? Because the judge was kind of harsh to Jay-Z and Diddy in her response?
Yeah, this is sort of like, if a child asks you for something and you're trying to teach them a lesson, you say, no, not right now. Go be good for a little while, then come back and ask me again. That is almost exactly what Judge Annalisa Torres did here. She wanted to send a message directly to Alex Spiro, who is obviously one of the most prolific attorneys in the country right now. I've known him for 20 years. He started as a DA in Manhattan. I knew him as a DA in Manhattan. I had cases against him as a DA in Manhattan. And he's gone on to do incredible things. But he has a very specific style. And there's a lot of people who don't like that style. And Judge Torres is one of them. He's now twice kind of taken the reins and tried to take control of the narrative of cases by putting on sort of these preemptive press conferences. He did it with Mayor Adams, and he did it now with Jay-Z, where he goes to the press and essentially puts on a PowerPoint and says, hey, this is why I think this case is garbage.
First, running Bad Boy Records in the 90s, an empire that thrived off success and fear, Jay-Z watched, studied, and built Rockefeller using those same tactics, loyalty through control, silence through influence. Together, they understood one thing: the key to survival at the top is knowing everyone's secrets. And that's where it gets disturbing. Diddy's name has long been tied to rumors of manipulation, wild parties, strange disappearances. and a pattern of people around him who either vanished from the spotlight or refused to speak publicly again. Now, as new investigations into Diddy's private life continue, those stories are gaining traction. Industry insiders claim that what happened behind closed doors wasn't just about entertainment. It was about building a vault of secrets, moments caught on tape, conversations recorded, relationships used as leverage. And according to those same sources, Jay-Z wasn't just aware, he was part of the same world. The connection between Diddy and Jay-Z has always been deeper than most realize. They moved in the same circles, shared the same investors.
Listed only as a well-known woman lived. Combs was dating Jennifer Lopez at the time. She is not named in the lawsuit. The woman claims in the suit that Combs told her she should get in his car, and that the two men who worked with him were there. She claims she was reluctant, but eventually got in, but the car didn't go to her home. She said she was offered a drink to calm her nerves, but it made her groggy. The suit claims she was sexually assaulted and taken home and left in the lobby of her building. Sean Combs' lawyers are denying the latest claims, as they have denied the claims in many other civil lawsuits. They said, no matter how many lawsuits are filed, it won't change the fact that Mr. Combs has never sexually assaulted or sex trafficked anyone, man or woman, adult or minor. Now to Jay-Z and the latest with him. Ever since he was officially named in the lawsuit, things have been kind of crazy, with a legal war of words between his lawyer, Alex Spiro, and the accuser's lawyer, Tony Busby. Jay-Z, whose legal name is Sean Carter, is being sued civilly by a Jane Doe from Alabama, who claims Sean Combs and Jay-Z sexually assaulted her at a VMA's after party in the year 2000. Just a quick recap on that case. The woman said she went to Radio City Music Hall because the MTV Video Music Awards were taking place there. Inside, it was a big night for Sean Combs' then-girlfriend, Jennifer Lopez, who won the VMA for Best Dance Music Video. The accuser was 13 at the time. She said she didn't have a ticket, so she hung out outside of Radio City Music Hall with limo drivers. One convinced her to go to a house for an after-party. The woman said a lot of celebrities were at this house and that she drank something that made her feel woozy, and she found a bedroom where she laid down. The suit states, soon after, Combs entered the room along with defendant Carter and a female celebrity, Celebrity B. Plaintiff immediately recognized all three celebrities. Combs aggressively approached plaintiff with a crazed look in his eyes, grabbed her and said, "You are ready to party." Combs then threw plaintiff toward a wall, causing plaintiff to fall. Plaintiff got up and stumbled, at which point Combs grabbed her again and threw her on the bed. At that point, Carter began removing plaintiff's clothes as she grew more and more disoriented. Plaintiff was held down by Carter as he vaginally raped her, while Combs and Celebrity B watched. After Carter finished, he stepped back toward the wall. Combs then stepped forward and vaginally raped plaintiff while Carter and Celebrity B watched. Combs then knocked plaintiff down and attempted to force plaintiff to perform oral sex on him. She fought back, standing up quickly and punching out at the same time, hitting Combs in the neck. Taken aback, Combs stopped his attempt. Now, Jay-Z has vehemently denied these allegations, and since the suit was filed, there have been inconsistencies that have emerged in the woman's story, including the fact that she claimed her dad picked her up that night, but he told NBC News he doesn't remember doing that and it would have taken him hours to drive to pick her up. And the woman claims she talked to Benji Madden at the party, but he was on tour in the Midwest at the time. Well, an old friend of Jay-Z's, who has a complicated past with him, is now coming to his defense. Rapper Beanie Sigel says the woman should have to reveal her name. Right now, a judge is allowing her to remain anonymous. Sigel and Jay-Z were both artists on Rockefeller Records back in the early aughts. Jay-Z was a partial owner of that label. The two had a falling out. Then Sigel recorded a diss track about Jay-Z in 2009, but the two have since smoothed things over. Now Sigel has spoken out about the lawsuit where Jay-Z is being sued along with Sean Combs by that woman identified right now only as Jane Doe. She claims Jay-Z and Sean Combs raped her at that VMA party back in 2000. Well, Sigel talked about the claim on the Art of Dialogue YouTube channel recently.
You got people like me.
And used the same playbook. They knew the power of information and the fear it could create. Behind every public smile and every lavish party, there were whispers of what really went on, the cameras, the threats, the quiet deals that kept people loyal. People who were once close to them say that both men learned how to manipulate the industry's power structure. Diddy would host exclusive, invite-only events, gatherings that became infamous for their secrecy and excess. But what wasn't known was how those nights often ended, with Diddy allegedly holding compromising material on his guests, ensuring that everyone who attended would think twice before crossing him. Jay-Z, according to some, learned from that playbook. He built alliances with politicians, business moguls, and global brands, not just to grow his empire, but to protect it. But what's surfacing now threatens to expose everything. The lawsuits, the investigations, the witnesses who are suddenly ready to talk, all of it points toward a hidden network of influence and control.
Just an interesting response, considering Jay-Z and Shaq have been photographed together through the years. But I guess what I'll say is just a lighter moment in what is a very, very serious and deeply disturbing set of allegations. Now, while that wasn't really specific what to make of that reaction, I will say who did get into specifics. Charlemagne. So he hosts The Breakfast Club, and he says the following: "Good for Hove. I'm glad Jay-Z responded just like that because this has been going on for too long. It is a grift. These accusers go to these lawyers with all these salacious claims. The lawyer will put more sauce on the salacious claims. They reach out to your team, say if you don't settle with us, we're going to go public with these claims. They'll tell you they're going to hold a press conference. We're going to do interviews. And a lot of people settle because they don't want the bad press. And most people settle. You'd be surprised how many people settle. The court of public opinion makes everybody guilty, so it makes a lot of people settle." And Hove said, "Kiss my A, I'm not settling, and I don't blame him." And then he went on to say, "At some point, this litigious blackmailing and extortion has to stop." And he also added, what you hear is this, right? You hear the initial accusation, but you don't ever see when the case gets dropped. You don't see when the case actually gets dismissed. That is a really interesting reaction. I mean, seemingly, he's not believing Jane Doe's claims, or Tony Busby, at least as of now. And seemingly, he is praising Jay-Z and his lawyers' aggressive strategy. We've talked about this before. Jay-Z knew this lawsuit was going to be filed. He had that response prepared. He and his attorney have been actively fighting since this case got filed to get the case dismissed. And they've been arguing that Jane Doe should have to reveal herself. And to not do so is procedurally improper. They have even said the case should be thrown out. They've gone on the offensive, calling Busby's actions extortion and blackmail, criticizing him for sending a demand letter prior to him being named in the lawsuit. And apparently Jay-Z filed his own lawsuit against Tony Busby, accusing him of extortion and intentional infliction of emotional distress. Now, some would say that Busby didn't do anything wrong, that a demand letter is very standard practice. You send the demand letter to try to settle the case or go to mediation. That is standard practice. But if Jay-Z is saying these claims against him are false, and this was just an attempt to settle so he wouldn't be exposed, this isn't right, he says, and he's fighting it. I will say it'll be interesting to see if more lawsuits come out against Jay-Z, because I will say in his lawsuit against Tony Busby, he seems to indicate that Busby has accused him of misconduct, not just with respect to this Jane Doe, but at least one other person. And if he gets hit with more lawsuits, lawsuit after lawsuit after lawsuit, more allegations, things could change. Public perception could change. And you have to think about what happened with Sean Combs, right? He settles with Cassandra Ventura in her sexual assault lawsuit back in November of 2023, but the day after she files it, after we've all seen the allegations of rape, domestic violence, sex trafficking, then he settles. So what happens? The floodgates open. Combs is hit with lawsuit after lawsuit after lawsuit. He was just hit with 3 more lawsuits being brought by unidentified men. And it sure didn't help him that the 2016 video of him purportedly beating Cassandra Ventura in a hotel hallway was released by CNN because it gave more validity to the claims against him. And look, there are those who are praising Jay-Z's strategy because this is the first accusation. He's never been accused of this in the past, as far as my understanding is. And if he can convince
control that connects both men in ways the public never knew. And it's not just about their businesses, it's about what they allegedly covered up together. Several sources have claimed that Jay-Z helped Diddy during critical moments of controversy, moments when evidence, testimonies, or lawsuits could have brought his career down years ago. In exchange, Diddy reportedly gave Jay-Z access to deals, contacts, and partnerships that catapulted him into billionaire status. It was a trade, silence for power, loyalty for protection. And when you look closely, the timeline lines up almost too perfectly. Whenever Diddy faced backlash, legal issues, violence, or accusations, Jay-Z was suddenly rising, seemingly untouched. When Jay-Z faced criticism, Diddy's name was suddenly back in headlines, taking the focus away. For decades, they've moved in a coordinated dance, one taking the heat while the other stayed in the shadows. Now, as Diddy's empire collapses under the weight of federal investigations, lawsuits, and shocking new revelations, people are starting to ask, how much does Jay-Z really know?
Convince the court that Jane Doe has to reveal her identity, then that may cause her to abandon this lawsuit because she may not want to proceed in a very public lawsuit with so much sensitive details that for the whole world to know who she is. That could be a major win for Jay-Z. But the other way of looking at it is, besides the fact that if other lawsuits come out, that might change the scenario, Busby has said that Jay-Z and his lawyers are not doing the right thing, that their tactics of filing a lawsuit against him, accusing him of pressuring a different woman to alter her own sexual assault story when she reported her claims to Busby. Yeah, there was that allegation too, that she felt pressured by his firm to change her story. He's saying, Busby, all of this, he's saying that what Jay-Z and his lawyers are doing is potentially illegal and even defamatory. So you have two sides here, two sides of this. I will say, though, based on the trajectory of other Sean Combs cases, there is a chance Jane Doe, here, the person suing Jay-Z, will have to reveal her identity in the civil lawsuit. I've talked about this before, but there is an argument that has worked in Sean Combs cases. Look at the Anna Cain situation, where Jay-Z would have a right to know who his accuser is, challenge her. She brought this lawsuit, after all. This is different from a criminal case where a Jane or John Doe are being called as prosecution witnesses. It's not their case. They didn't necessarily choose to bring the prosecution's case, but they're called as witnesses. They may have more grounds to say, I don't want to be identified, government, this is your case. Whereas here, do they have a right to remain anonymous when they are voluntarily filing a lawsuit against a very high-profile individual like a Sean Combs or a Jay-Z? So anyway, bottom line, something to think about in context with Charlamagne's comments. But let's talk about comedian Andrew Schulz. He spoke about Jay-Z's situation on his Flagrant podcast, and he was asked, do you think the Jay-Z thing just gets thrown out? To which he responded, yeah, he's innocent. Now, when he said it, I couldn't tell if he's just joking around or he's being serious, but he did say that Jane Doe's account was, quote, wonky, and this happened how many years ago? And then he also said, I don't know, bro. But he did also say, I hate that allegations can automatically incriminate people. So kind of similar to Charlamagne, but you get a sense of where they both kind of stand in the early stages of this case. And by the way, if evidence should come out in this case that further supports Jane Doe's claims, I'm not necessarily saying a video like the 2016 video, but if something should come out that supports her claims, public opinion, that may change too. Celebrity reactions, that may change too. But while their statements are, kind of clear, I will say someone else responded to the Jay-Z lawsuit. And this was not only not entirely clear, I wasn't sure exactly what to make of it. I'm talking about rapper Meek Mill. Now, we'll get into what he said, but his name has been circulating a lot, mostly online, due to his reported connection to Sean Combs. His name has come up a lot in the past year. There was speculation that he was mentioned in one of the sexual assault lawsuits filed against Combs. This was the one filed by Combs' former producer, Rodney Little Rod Jones, who sued Sean Combs for sexual assault and sex trafficking. And in that lawsuit, Jones alleges that Combs admitted to him that he engaged in sexual intercourse with a, quote, unidentified Philadelphia rapper who dated Nicki Minaj. There are those who have speculated online that that is Meek Mill. At the time, Meek Mill posted on X, one love to the gay people, but then talked about in graphic detail how much he loves women, particularly how much he loves a certain body part of, or a certain part of the female anatomy. But now, in the wake of Jay-Z being named in the lawsuit, Meek Mill, who has collaborated and partnered with Jay-Z in the past, like on Get Rich, Smile Now, Don't Believe in Dreams, he seemed to address Jay-Z's legal issue because he wrote the...
Some believe that Jay-Z has spent the last few months quietly distancing himself, preparing for what's coming. He's been unusually quiet, keeping out of the spotlight, and insiders claim that his legal team has been reviewing old business records, especially any that trace back to Diddy, but others say it's too late, that the two are tied together by years of hidden dealings and shared secrets that can't be erased. What's most chilling are the new reports claiming that certain tapes allegedly recorded at Diddy's private gatherings, contain moments involving some of the industry's most powerful figures, people who were never supposed to be exposed. And while no one's saying exactly what's on them, whispers suggest that they could destroy reputations and reveal just how deep this web of corruption goes. And if Jay-Z appears on any of that footage, or if his name appears in those files, the fallout would be catastrophic. Because Jay-Z has built his image around intelligence, business mastery, and control. He's the calm strategist, the mogul who outsmarted the system. But behind the scenes, sources say he may have benefited from Diddy's chaos, using the distraction to expand his empire while quietly protecting the same network that's now falling apart. This is the part of the story that no one in the industry wants to talk about, the dark ties that connect these two powerful men. For years, they've shaped the sound, style, and business of hip-hop, but now, people are wondering if they also shaped the silence. One former associate described it perfectly: you couldn't say no to them. Not Diddy, not Jay-Z, they had eyes everywhere. If you said the wrong thing, your career was over. And now, as Diddy's empire burns, that fear is fading, and people are starting to talk. More and more former insiders are coming forward, claiming they witnessed disturbing things, stories of control, threats, manipulation, and worse, stories that connect back not just to Diddy, but to Jay-Z's world as well, the hidden side of Roc Nation, the closed-door meetings, the deals that didn't make sense unless you knew what was really being traded. And it all leads to one chilling question: how much of their success was built on talent, and how much was built on fear? What's happening right now feels like the unraveling of something much bigger than just Diddy's downfall, because when one link in a powerful chain breaks, the rest can't stay hidden for long. And if the people who once protected Diddy decide to save themselves, if they start naming names, Jay-Z's entire empire could be pulled into the storm. Behind the private jets, the billion-dollar brands, and the endless luxury is a truth that's much darker than anyone imagined. The image of two kings ruling over hip-hop is cracking, revealing the shadow network that made it all possible. Because when you peel back the layers, when you look past the awards and the fame, you start to see what's really been happening behind the curtain: two powerful men bound by secrets too dangerous to tell. The untold truth about Diddy and Jay-Z isn't just about friendship or betrayal, it's about how power really works in the music industry, who controls it, who gets silenced, and what happens when the people at the top finally run out of ways to hide. And as the investigations continue, and the whispers turn into headlines, one thing is becoming impossible to deny: the empire they built wasn't just based on business genius, it was built on darkness. And that darkness is finally catching up.